My name is Rachel Kite. I'm the UK's Special Representative for Climate, and I'm really, really pleased to be able to moderate this session today. We are live streamed on the UK Pavilion YouTube channel, which is breaking all records for viewership at the moment, and it'll be available later on Catch Up, so I hope that you'll take it and push it out there through your own social media channels. It's an important day for us today. We've got a keynote, I'm delighted we've got a keynote from our fantastic Climate Minister, Minister Kerry McCarthy. She's going to set out the UK's direction of travel on voluntary carbon markets. And then we'll have some reflections from the Honourable Minister, Mr. Yem Bahadur Shahid Thakuri of Nepal, followed by a panel discussion with a wonderful array of representatives from different parts of the market who are going to share their perspective on today's announcement. So why does this matter? Well, here we are at the climate COP, and we have an ambition gap, and we have an implementation gap. And one big reason for that is the financial flows, or the lack of financial flows in many cases, around our climate ambition. In all of the reports on climate finance in the last few weeks, from IEA, from CPI and others, it's very clear that there is finance flowing into energy transitions, into the green economy, into fairer, more investable growth and development plans for countries. But most of that investment is actually captured in just a few geographies. And in order to really get investment to flow into emerging markets and developing economies, we have to deal with trade barriers, we have to deal with the lack of investable projects, we have to deal with the reasons why finance doesn't flow. And those are manifold and discussed in many different places. But countries are desperate for new streams of revenue. And one of the most important, tantalizingly close streams of revenue are the carbon markets, and in particular within it, the voluntary carbon markets. Now, obviously, we're focused on the Article 6 negotiations here, and I hope that we will all work together to get over the line Article 6 that will allow Article 6.4, 6.8, 6.6, 6.2 to move forward. But the voluntary carbon markets have been, in particular since Glasgow and COP29, tantalizingly close. And one of the big issues in the fact that the market hasn't really taken off as we would want is on the demand side. So we often talk about the supply side, and International Council for Voluntary Integrity Council for Voluntary Carbon Markets is doing great work on that. But the demand is there, has not been there because lack of clarity and a lack of a sense of where governments are on this, and a signal to the private sector that this is what is wanted from them and that this will make sense and that it would be recognised and rewarded. So I'm going to, without further ado, hand over to the Minister, who will talk about the UK's commitment and direction of travel. And I just want to say, as a Brit and now as the Special Representative, I'm so proud to be here at COP28 with such an incredible bench of ministers, and to have a climate minister within the Department of Energy Security and Net Zero is a really great thing. Kerry, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Rachel, and I would replicate what Rachel has just said. It's fantastic to have you on board as our special representative, and the experience that you bring and the knowledge that you bring of the financial world is going to be incredibly important to us as a government as we seek to reach our domestic and global ambitions. Today I want to talk to you about the role that the UK government sees for the responsible use of high integrity voluntary carbon credits. I set out how we can work together to drive better practice. We have always been strong advocates of carbon markets at home and internationally. At home, our ambitious UK emissions trading scheme is driving our mission of accelerating to net zero. And our work with the British Standards Institute is supporting access to UK nature and removals markets. Internationally, we've committed over £300 million of the UK's aid budget in recent years so that emerging markets and developing economies can access carbon finance and the climate and developments they bring more easily. This includes our efforts to develop a high-integrity forest carbon market, as evidenced by our recent landmark public-private deal between the Leaf Coalition and the Brazilian state of Pará. This deal, worth up to $180 million, will help to protect and restore their rainforest. And here in Baku, we continue to work constructively with others to fully agree Article 6 in a way that promotes environmental integrity in the decades to come. Parties have already made good progress by agreeing the standards that will underpin Article 6.4 this week. One of the UK government's key goals is reinforcing the link between the climate transition and a strong and thriving economy, and voluntary carbon markets can help us to do both. Besides their potential to raise finance for developing countries, they can enable deployment of new technologies and land management practices where they would otherwise be too expensive, while delivering environmental development and biodiversity co-benefits. I'm delighted that Minister Thakuri will be sharing more on how voluntary markets are helping Nepal to meet their climate and nature goals. Evidence suggests that these markets could, if things get back on track, be worth in the tens of billions of dollars annually by 2030, and potentially even more in the following decades under the right conditions. This is finance that is sorely needed given the scale of the challenge we face in supporting the transition and meeting our 1.5-degree goal. So it's critical that we continue to mobilise private capital towards the most impactful climate mitigation activities at speed. However, last year saw a steep fall in the market size for voluntary carbon credits to just over $700 million. This followed highs of around $2 billion in the preceding 2 years. The market is rightly being scrutinised and has not always met the standards we should expect. So to reverse this trend and for carbon markets to be better trusted in terms of integrity, it requires buyers and investors to have more confidence that their carbon credits deliver the benefits they claim and can be used responsibly without delaying ambitious science-aligned action on cutting emissions. The UK government wants to help drive this change, and that is why it gives me great pleasure today to report that the UK government is publishing 6 integrity principles for voluntary markets. These principles were announced yesterday by our Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rachel Reeves, our Chief Finance Minister. They will help all market actors reach and apply a common understanding of high integrity markets. And they build on the excellent work of organisations here today to help restore the trust in the market needed for it to scale and make a greater contribution to the climate effort. They recognise that some voluntary markets, for example, for widespread biodiversity crediting, are at very early stages and subject to significant technical and political challenges. So to be clear, in today's publication, we're not advocating an international trade in biodiversity credits, noting recent guidance on this topic. We will consult publicly in the new year on the steps the UK could take to implement the 6 principles. And these principles are, firstly, that credit should only be used in addition to ambitious action to reduce value chain impacts in line with 1.5 degrees. Immediate, ambitious and sustained action is needed to reduce emissions, and all buyers should focus principally on these efforts. The Voluntary Carbon Market Integrity Initiative, VCMI, has helped to clarify this through its code of practice, setting out useful guidance on how buyers can demonstrate best practice. And while this can be demanding, it is certainly possible, as we will hear later from Brazilian firm Natura & Co., which has met the highest integrity VCMI criteria. We will propose in the forthcoming consultation that the UK endorses VCMI's claims code of practice as representing best practice and consider how this could be reflected in policy. The second principle is that credits used should meet recognised high integrity criteria. Unregulated voluntary carbon markets can support innovation, and many actors have worked hard for years to bring forward good credits. But as I've already said, not all credits meet the standards we should expect. So to help buyers and investors identify high integrity, the Integrity Council for the Voluntary Carbon Market, ICVCM, has, through a comprehensive process, agreed a set of global supply-side quality criteria and is assessing crediting methodologies against them. New ratings agencies in the UK like Silvera, who are here today, and B0 are helping buyers too. by providing thorough, independent assessments of credit quality. And all this work is having welcome effects, with credit suppliers and other actors strengthening their practices in response. In the consultation, we will propose that the UK endorses ICVCM's core carbon principles and assessment framework as providing minimum standards for voluntary carbon credit quality, and consider how this endorsement could be put into practice. Our third principle is that credit users are encouraged to voluntarily, publicly report any use of carbon credits. In doing so, they can demonstrate that purchase credits are high quality and that they complement rather than replace value chain action. Our fourth principle is that credit users should set and disclose long-term and interim targets and strategies to achieve them. This will help to demonstrate that buyers are taking action to reduce their value chain emissions too. Our fifth principle is that buyers should make accurate claims about their use of credits. Without this, disputes and litigation-related risk could inhibit finance flows through carbon markets. We would like to see buyers that use high-integrity credits responsibly and transparently be able to do so with confidence. The sixth and final principle is the principle that we, the UK government, and all other market actors should cooperate more to support access, transparency and interoperability of all markets. So in that spirit, we will invite views on the application of these principles through a public consultation on voluntary carbon and nature markets in the new year. Thank you all for coming. It's a really packed room. It shows the interest. I look forward to a vibrant and informative panel discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. I mean, it's a really exciting moment for us, I think, to have the UK entering into a public consultation on such an important issue and sending a signal and hoping that that signal effect joins with the US and others who've tried to do the same thing to really build confidence in the market. So now I'd like to offer the podium to Minister Takuri from Nepal to talk to us about the perspective on the role that high-integrity voluntary markets can play in helping Nepal with its climate and nature goals. Please.
Thank you very much. माननीय वातावरण मंत्री केरी मैकार्थी ज्यू, बेलायत सरकारका जलवायु परिवर्तन विशेष दूत र्याचलज्यू लगायत सम्पूर्ण यहाँ उपस्थित सर म्याडमहरू, युके सरकार र आयोजकलाई नेपाल सरकारको तर्फबाट कार्बन क्रेडिट प्रिन्सिपल्स लन्चिङ इभेन्टको आयोजनाका लागि हार्दिक धन्यवाद दिन चाहन्छु।
Your Excellency Minister Kerry McCarthy, the Special Envoy of Climate Change to UK Government Rachel, ladies and gentlemen, first of all I would like to thank UK Government for providing this opportunity to deliver the perspective of Nepalese government about the carbon market, carbon trade in this program.
नेपाल र युके सरकार बीच ऐतिहासिक पारस्परिक सम्बन्ध छ। हामी यो सम्बन्ध दीर्घकालसम्म कायम राख्न चाहन्छौं।
Nepal and UK have a long-standing bilateral relationships, and we would like to continue the relationship in future as well.
जलवायु परिवर्तनको चुनौतीलाई सम्बोधन गर्ने साझा प्रयासका लागि यो कदम महत्त्वपूर्ण रहेकोमा नेपाल सरकारको तर्फबाट प्रशंसा व्यक्त गर्न चाहन्छु।
The Nepal government would like to appreciate UK government for supporting the climate actions across the world.
नेपालको जलवायु नीति र कार्बन न्यूनीकरण सम्बन्धी प्रतिबद्धता अन्तर्गत सन् 2045 सम्ममा कार्बन तटस्थता नेट जिरो एमिसन हासिल गर्ने लक्ष्यमा नेपालको प्रयासलाई अझ सशक्त बनाउन यस किसिमको अन्तर्राष्ट्रिय सहयोगले प्रेरणा मिलेको छ।
The UK government support in climate actions across the world, including Nepal's effort to achieve net zero by 2045 and other policy, climate policy achievement is appreciated.
कार्बन व्यापारको प्रवर्धनका लागि सरकारले कार्बन व्यापारको प्रवर्धनका लागि नेपाल सरकारले वातावरण संरक्षण नियमावली संशोधनको प्रक्रिया थालनी गरी अन्तिम मस्यौदा तयार गरी अन्तिम चरणमा पुगेको छ।
Government of Nepal is revising its environmental protection regulation, particularly in focusing carbon trade and also the Article 6 of Paris Agreement that will be implemented after the amendment of our regulation.
कार्बन व्यापार नेपालको लागि वातावरणीय न्याय र हरित विकासको लागि महत्त्वपूर्ण अवसर बनेको छ, जसले समुदायहरूलाई जलवायु परियोजनामा संलग्न गराएर आर्थिक लाभ प्राप्त गर्न सक्ने अवसर प्रदान गर्दछ।
Nepal is looking into the carbon trade is one of the steps for climate justice because it follows an equitable benefit sharing plan of carbon trade that will directly goes to the communities that are contributing to reducing carbon emission and contributing to the emission reduction.
नेपालको वन सम्पदाले वातावरणीय सन्तुलन कायम राख्न र कार्बन उत्सर्जनको न्यूनीकरणमा उल्लेखनीय योगदान पुर्याएको छ। वन क्षेत्रको व्यवस्थापन र जैविक विविधताको संरक्षणमा नेपालले लामो समयदेखि काम गर्दै आएको छ।
Nepal has about 45% of area under forest cover, and then because of the community forestry and other sustainable forest management program, this sector, forestry sector, is contributing to Nepalese economy.
सामुदायिक वन व्यवस्थापन, वन संरक्षण कार्यक्रमहरू र राष्ट्रिय निकुञ्ज तथा संरक्षित क्षेत्रहरू मार्फत कार्बन हटाउने प्रयासहरू नेपालको जलवायु नीति र वातावरणीय दिगोपनको आधार स्तम्भ हुन्।
We are using community forest, forest conservation programs and also the protected area system in order to offset carbon from the atmosphere. And these are the major steps of Nepal to reduce carbon emission.
कार्बन व्यापारको लाभ स्थानीय समुदायहरूमा सिधै पुग्नुपर्छ भन्ने नेपाल सरकारको विश्वास छ।
The government of Nepal believes that the benefits of any carbon trade should go directly to the local communities.
सामुदायिक वन व्यवस्थापनमा आधारित कार्बन क्रेडिट परियोजनाको ग्रामीण समुदायहरूलाई सशक्त बनाउन मद्दत गर्दछ।
Therefore, any carbon credit program will empower local communities.
UK को यो पहलले नेपालको ग्रामीण क्षेत्रका समुदायलाई कार्बन व्यापार मार्फत आर्थिक समृद्धि हासिल गर्न सहयोग पुर्याउनेछ भन्ने विश्वास राखेका छौं।
UK government's support can contribute to the local communities' economic prosperity as well as the environmental integrity.
कार्बन व्यापारलाई थप प्रभावकारी बनाउन नेपाललाई प्राविधिक सहयोग, प्रशिक्षण र क्षमता विकासका लागि समर्थन आवश्यक छ।
In order to make carbon trade more effective and more sustainable and equitable, technical assistance, capacity building, and other supports are necessary.
नेपाल सरकार युके सरकारसँग मिलेर कार्बन व्यापार सम्बन्धी क्षमता अभिवृद्धि तथा निगरानी प्रक्रियामा सहयोगको अपेक्षा गर्दछ।
Government of Nepal expects from UK government, particularly in the capacity building of the government staff and local communities in carbon trade.
यो पहलले अन्तर्राष्ट्रिय कार्बन बजारमा नेपाललाई एक सामाजिक रूपमा दिगो सहभागीको रूपमा स्थापित गर्न मद्दत गर्ने विश्वास रहेको छ।
Nepal government believes that this effort will make Nepal a sustainable partner in carbon trade in international market.
नेपालको जलवायु अनुकूलन र हरित परियोजनाहरूमा कार्बन व्यापार र जलवायु वित्तको प्रभावकारी प्रयोग गर्न युके सरकारसँग अझ प्रगाढ साझेदारीको अपेक्षा छ।
Yes, the UK government has been supporting Nepal's climate change, climate actions through this carbon trade and other green projects. We would like to strengthen our partnership in the days to come.
कार्बन वित्तले नेपालका प्राथमिकताका क्षेत्रमा जैविक विविधता, संरक्षण, वन पुनर्स्थापना र उत्सर्जन न्यूनीकरणमा सहयोग पुर्याउने अपेक्षा गर्दछौँ।
Carbon finance is not only a vehicle for trade, but also is a vehicle for sustainable forest management and community empowerment.
युके सरकार संलग्न रहेको लिभ कोलिसनको सम्झौताको अन्तिम चरणमा छौँ।
We are almost in the final stage to finalize the Leaf Coalition agreement on the part of the government of Nepal, in which the UK government is also a part.
अन्त्यमा आजको यस महत्त्वपूर्ण अवसरले नेपाल र युके सरकारको जलवायु सहकार्यलाई थप सशक्त बनाउन विश्वास लिएका छौँ।
Finally, I believe this meeting today will further strengthen our collaboration in future.
यस कार्बन ट्रेड प्रिन्सिपल्सको माध्यमबाट विश्वका वातावरणीय लक्ष्य प्राप्त गर्न हामी साझा रूपमा अघि बढ्न तत्पर छौँ।
We are ready to move ahead collectively in the context of carbon trade principles.
पुनः युके सरकार र यस कार्यक्रमका आयोजकहरूलाई धन्यवाद ज्ञापन गर्दछु र कार्बन व्यापारमा नेपाल र युके सरकारको सहकार्यको सफलताको कामना गर्दछु।
Last but not least, I would like to thank UK government and the organizer of this program. And I believe through this program and through carbon trade, Nepal and UK partnership will strengthen in the days to come.
धन्यवाद।
Thank you very much.
Minister Dandabad, thank you so much. So we can see that for a country like Nepal, if we can instrumentalize these principles, this can have a profound effect, as well as helping companies move through their transitions smoothly. So with that, I'm going to hand over to colleagues from VCMI. I think, Lydia, you're going to take our esteemed panel through a short discussion, and then I'll come back at the end to conclude. Lydia, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Rachel. Is it working? Okay, great. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you very much, honourable ministers from UK and Nepal. It's a real pleasure to be here. I'm Lydia Sheldrake, Director of Policy and Partnerships at the Voluntary Carbon Market Integrity Initiative, the VCMI. And I'd like to give a special congratulations from VCMI to the UK for the release of these principles today, which are hugely welcome for bringing much needed signals of political support and confidence to this market, which is needed in order to help it to grow and deliver the benefits which we all know it can bring. As a former UK civil servant, I'm particularly pleased to see this release and see that it recognises and aligns with the hard work that we've been doing at VCMI. At VCMI, we provide guidance to companies to scale their use of carbon credits as part of net zero transitions through our Claims Code of Practice and through our Scope 3 claim, for which we recently finished a public consultation and are starting a road test with companies to really drive implementation of these markets in a high integrity way. And a special shout out to Rachel, who for 3 years provided leadership to the VCMI as our co-chair of the steering committee, but has since moved on to another important job, which we will forgive her for in due course, I think. And so with that, I'm excited to introduce our panel of esteemed experts who bring insights from different elements of the voluntary carbon market value chain to talk about the significance of these principles for their work day to day, working to build these markets with integrity. So to my right, I have Onel Marsadoule, co-chair of the Indigenous Peoples and Local Communities VCM Engagement Forum. And to my left, at the far left, Lorna Ritchie, Director of Public Affairs at the Integrity Council of Voluntary Carbon Markets, the ICVCM. Alistair Fury, CEO and co-founder of Silvera. And João Teixeira, Climate Action Manager at Natura & Company. So, turning first to Alistair, can you tell us, how does your work align with one or more of these principles?
Hopefully that works. Yes, great, thank you. Well, first, thank you for the invitation. It's fantastic to be here, and also fantastic to see the UK take a leadership role with integrity as well at the core of the principles. Great to see also such strong leadership. So exciting and a great timing, given that we might see a slowing in momentum from our friends across the Atlantic, given the recent developments there. I think although we resonate with all of the 6 principles, it has to be integrity for us. So I think it's worth stepping back and saying, what does integrity mean in this context for both carbon and nature? It means that when an actor purchases an instrument, a credit, that they have a reasonable expectation that the outcome is being delivered. So if in our case, if a ton is being purchased of a carbon credit, that a ton of CO2 is out of the atmosphere. And what would need to be true for that to be the case? You'd need rigorous methodologies and strong adherence to those, and you would need incentives to make that true. And I think that's only partially been fulfilled, those requirements, in recent years, and that has led to many credits not achieving that ton-for-ton requirement that any buyer would reasonably expect. Then we need to ask, what would need to be true to get to that state where each ton of carbon on the market would equal a ton? Well, you would need adherence to best practice across all of the methodologies and homogeneity there. And the Integrity Council has been doing fantastic work at that methodology level. And we think it's a foundation that you require. Then at the project level and credit level, you need diligence that actually checks whether the actions have happened and whether they've had the effects claimed, and that's where Silvera and other ratings agencies have stepped in to provide that. And what we've seen is the market respond to those signals. We see the buyers clearly looking for the CCP label, and we also see premiums being paid for higher rated projects. So there is a willingness to pay for that enhanced guarantee of one-for-one climate effect, such that each rating notch generates about 30 to 35% of premium. So where you see concerns about corporates wanting to greenwash, we don't see that at all. We actually see a willingness for actors to pay to be sure of the climate action, which is wonderful. So I think going forward, more of the same. The principles are fantastic. I think you want to see conflicts of interest being very carefully managed, and we'd love to see the principles be further enhanced by regulatory clarity. And it's fantastic, obviously, that or maybe not all of the audience know, that the FCA has also been leading on regulatory frameworks for ratings agencies in the ESG space as well. So you're getting those those foundational components that would be required for a high integrity market at much greater scale.
Thank you, Alistair. Very practical insights on integrity and interoperability, and more being needed. So with that, Onel, can you tell us what significance do these principles have for the indigenous peoples and locals communities groups that you work with?
Buenas tardes. ¿Se escucha? Sí, bueno, en primer lugar, agradecer la invitación de compartir nuestra idea sobre el tema que nos trae, los principios. Y yo creo que primero quiero resaltar que en ese mercado voluntario de carbono, los pueblos indígenas y las comunidades locales juegan un rol importante y por tanto se tienen que reconocer sus derechos, ¿ya? Por tanto, pensamos que cualquier definición que se lleve de alta integridad debe reconocer el papel que desempeñan los pueblos indígenas y las comunidades locales y que se garantice la medida que se debe abordar sus derechos, ¿ya? Porque para todo es sabido que más de 40% de los bosques están en los territorios indígenas. Por otro lado, que pensamos que los gobiernos también pueden ayudar, ¿ya?, a los mercados voluntarios, porque generalmente se piensa que el mercado voluntario no hay una participación directa de los gobiernos, pero yo creo que es necesario porque tenemos que ir aclarando qué significa la alta integridad y alinearlo en el marco de ICBSM, ¿ya?, que apoya a la mitigación y los resultados sociales que sean positivos. Yo creo que estamos seguros que los principios que acaban de lanzar están alineados con lo que nosotros hacemos, el Foro de Participación de Pueblos Indígenas y Comunidades Locales en el Mercado Voluntario de Carbono, ¿ya? Para eso queremos señalar que debe haber un enfoque alta de integridad del mercado voluntario de carbono y proporcionar un claro compromiso de asegurar que el flujo de financiamiento lleguen hacia los pueblos indígenas realmente. Porque yo creo que los beneficios se debe resaltar, ¿ya?, los resultados se debe llegar a los pueblos indígenas. Porque si el mercado de carbono no llega no tiene ese impacto positivo en nuestros pueblos, se puede decir que no va a lograr el objetivo que se persigue. Y por tanto nosotros pensamos que trabajando juntos, pueblos indígenas, comunidades locales, gobiernos y el sector privado, vamos a lograr los resultados esperados y mitigar el problema de la emisión, ¿ya?, de carbono a la atmósfera, porque todos debemos participar en buscar soluciones, ¿ya?, al problema de cambio climático, pero porque todos vivimos en este planeta que llamamos Tierra. Nadie vive acá en el Marte, no vive en otro espacio. Por lo tanto, los efectos los recibimos todos y por tanto todos tenemos que aportar para solucionar ese problema que es la emisión. Muchas gracias.
Round of applause there for the really important points that you highlight. There is no integrity without respecting and protecting rights, and that has to be at the core, fundamentally, in all aspects of voluntary carbon markets, must be anchored at the local level. So, turning to Zhao, you're at a company that's putting money on the table. So tell us, how do these principles support and align with the work that you're doing to mobilize finance?
Me escutam? Sim? Me escutam? Eu vou trazer assim, a Natura começou a trabalhar na agenda de mudanças climáticas desde 2007, quando a gente lançou o nosso programa Natura Carbono Neutro, ainda no tempo do protocolo de Kyoto, longe ainda de qualquer acordo de Paris, onde a gente atuava ainda naquele entendimento de que a gente media as emissões, escopo 1, 2, 3, fazia nossas reduções, ainda que num olhar de eficiência de produto, de quantos quilos de CO2 por quilo de produto a gente colocava no mercado, e depois a gente compensava isso com créditos de carbono já de alta integridade. A gente sempre trouxe esse olhar de alta integridade para a nossa atuação, para falar o que a gente chamava de carbono neutro na época. A gente sabe, a ciência evoluiu, o nosso conhecimento evoluiu, os estándares evoluíram, e a gente com isso também precisou adaptar as nossas estratégias. Então, quando a gente fala, né, dos princípios, no final das contas, o VCMI, mais do que ninguém, pode comprovar isso, que a gente atua com todos eles, né, que estão sendo lançados agora. A gente precisa garantir que a nossa atuação esteja alinhada com um cenário de 1,5 graus, com metas Science-Based Target aprovadas, com uma atuação na cadeia de valor para reduzir as emissões de escopo 3, além de tudo que a gente vem fazendo nas nossas operações, no escopo 1 e no escopo 2, e depois disso atuar na mitigação para além da cadeia de valor, no que a gente chama de Beyond Mitigation Value Chain, que é para a gente efetivamente atuar na aceleração desse atingimento do Net Zero global. Quando a gente trabalha esses princípios, e principalmente acho que no olhar de uma empresa como a Natura, onde a gente é listado na Bolsa de Valores, onde a gente tem uma reputação, né, para trazer, né, um respaldo de toda a nossa atuação, a gente precisa estar bem alinhado e trazer transparência de tudo que a gente vem fazendo nesse sentido. A gente sabe que a gente não é perfeito, a gente sabe que tem evoluções que vão ser constantes nessa longa jornada, mas que a gente também precisa ser rápido nessa jornada, né, para atuar no combate às mudanças climáticas. E a gente vem, por meio disso, fazendo e aplicando, por exemplo, né, o claim do VCMI, para a gente garantir que tudo que a gente vem fazendo tenha as melhores das intenções e tenha o melhor respaldo que a ciência, que o momento atual nos possibilita. Então, acho que o olhar, né, de cada vez mais ter esses princípios postos regulatoriamente, talvez até em países, em associações, para a gente conseguir efetivamente garantir que o mercado todo se alinhe a esse tipo de princípio e garanta que todas as empresas do setor privado, claro, estão alinhadas com as melhores práticas possíveis.
Thanks, Zhao. A good call to action there for all other companies. And I think Natura's journey really shows how high integrity voluntary carbon markets are part of a package. It's not a one part solution. And actually for companies, these principles are about what a high ambition transition to net zero looks like. It's not just necessarily high integrity principles for voluntary carbon markets. So really helpful practical insights there. Lorna, turning to you, so the ICVCM develops standards for the supply side of voluntary carbon markets. So what do these principles mean for you?
Thank you so much for hosting me here today, and it's been really great to be part of this announcement. We really welcome the UK's leadership in this space, and we hope that many other countries will follow suit. I think it's really important that although it's a voluntary market, that governments are taking that leadership and setting in regulation more certainty around the integrity that is expected, so that we can move towards a globally harmonized approach, which brings more certainty to sellers who know what standards they have to aim for, and also buyers who know just by looking at the CCP labeled credits that they are high integrity. And CCPs, as we've seen, can be readily adopted into legislation. So we heard earlier a lot about local communities, and it's a real challenge with climate finance at the moment. Less than 10% actually reaches the local level. And so it's not just about the volume of finance, but also the quality and accessibility of finance. And this is where voluntary carbon markets can really play a role. So the Integrity Council's vision is integrity and scale will follow. So integrity to us means not just one credit equals 1 tonne of carbon removed or reduced, but also supports sustainable development and protects nature. So it's not just about carbon, it is also about sustainable development and protection of nature. And so our aim is to ratchet up ambition in the market and set that standard for voluntary carbon markets. So we assess programs and methodologies for their compliance with our core carbon principles using our assessment framework. And this has been a truly multi-stakeholder process. So we have academics, regulators, Global South, Global North, all involved in the process of assessment and continued assurance. So today is actually quite a fortuitous day because we have just announced a decision on 3 forestry methodologies and that are now approved with the CCP label. So these have a large pipeline of over 400 million credits, and this means that as well as supporting climate action, these will also support sustainable development and also the protection of nature in developing countries.
Thank you, Lorna. Great to hear that exciting announcement from ICVCM and see how forest-based carbon credits are being integrated into the CCP's framework. So we've got a quick fire round now before handing back to the chair. So I just want to ask each of the panelists, what is the one thing you would want to see governments do in order to mobilize these markets, enhance high integrity demand by COP30? So let's go to Alistair first.
So governments can play a very unique role. I think one thing that's critical is communication, why these exist. So it was really wonderful to see Rachel Kite talk at the beginning about these playing a part in climate finance. I think often when carbon credits are discussed, they're in some vacuum, but they're instruments to move capital to where they can have an effect and where there is a lack of financing typically. So talking about protection of forests, changing agricultural practices, allowing sustainable development, financing the transition of energy systems. This is money that has to be spent to achieve our 1.5 degree goals. And I think that has to be front and center, right? Without, there's no other way of plugging some of these gaps. So that's critical. And then I do think it's important that as they take the role to bring the corporates along the journey, if everyone did what Natura & Co did, that would be fantastic. But we'd like to see transition plans. We'd like to see the role of credits in those plans, disclosure of the use of credits. And then my final point is the voluntary carbon markets are part of a broader set of carbon instruments, so compliance mechanisms and Article 6 as well. So governments can play a role in the convergence of these systems with common standards and common data that allow these to be reconciled with one another as we have to deliver a carbon target to get to a temperature target. You have to take a holistic approach. So governments can play a unique role in that way.
Absolutely, enabling a holistic approach. Onel, if there were one wish you could make governments to take action, what would it be?
Yo creo que lo más importante, la acción de los gobiernos da seguridad, ¿ya?, al mercado voluntario para los pueblos indígenas, porque los conflictos que ha habido no hubo una presencia de los gobiernos allí en el mercado voluntario. Yo creo que ese es el rol principal para asegurar que alcance los objetivos del mercado voluntario. Los pueblos indígenas sentimos que si tenemos el respaldo del gobierno y la empresa, vamos a lograr lo que pretendemos, reducir la emisión. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Onel. So a presence and ensuring the accountability, very important point. Zhao?
Eu acho que eu vou seguir na mesma linha do Onel. Eu acho que segurança jurídica é um aspecto fundamental para quando as empresas estão atuando no mercado voluntário. E quando a gente fala, né, talvez uma combate, talvez não seja a palavra, mas a interligação, a conexão entre projetos de REDD+ privados com REDD+ jurisdicionais para garantir a contabilidade, o nesting desse tipo de projeto, para a gente garantir que quem está investindo nesse tipo de projeto está efetivamente garantindo que também o dinheiro chegue na ponta, chegue nas comunidades locais, que traga o desenvolvimento sustentável que essas comunidades precisam ser respaldadas pelo serviço prestado na conservação dessas florestas. Eu queria primeiro também, achei uma notícia fantástica, o ICVCM aprovar as metodologias de REDD+, porque efetivamente é isso que vai fazer com que o fluxo financeiro se alinhem cada vez mais nessas práticas de conservação e que essas pessoas que estão na ponta sejam reconhecidas e valorizadas pelo serviço prestado. Eu acho que esse é um ponto que, inclusive, quando os governos estão desenvolvendo suas taxonomias sustentáveis, quando os governos estão desenvolvendo plataformas de investimento climático, que nem o Brasil lançou recentemente, é importante garantir que isso tudo esteja alinhado para garantir um fluxo financeiro, garantindo essa conservação e desenvolvimento sustentável dessas comunidades.
Thank you very much, echoing Arnell's comments on certainty and accountability. So finally, Lorna, your one wish.
It's really hard to boil it down to one wish, but I would echo all of the points made by everyone on the panel. I think on the demand side, the work that the UK's done, creating more certainty around what high integrity means in terms of carbon credit standards for buyers is really, really important. But then also on the supply side, I think there's so many countries now on the supply side who are developing carbon market frameworks at the moment. And thinking about how that fits into their NDCs and their national strategies on decarbonisation. And I think it's really important as well to embed high integrity into those frameworks as they're being developed right from the beginning. I'd say that was another area that's really important.
Great. Thank you, panel. I think we've heard loud and clear that the VCM and principles are a step forward, but the work is not done. We need more action and more action from governments, especially to give us the certainty, the accountability, and crucially the presence, the clear signal of political support and action which is needed to really mobilize the finance and get the finance going to where it needs to go on the ground. So back over to Rachel.
So I think our panel took us on a very quick 360-degree tour of integrity and what it means to each of the participants in the market. I think we've also heard that that if we can make the voluntary carbon markets work at scale, it provides governments with additional sort of financial flexibility in how they meet their NDCs and how they meet their targets for climate and nature. And I think in a year when we're running up to COP30 in Brazil, where we go from Baku to Belém, we tend, when we're outside of Brazil, to see the extraordinary canopy of forest. That's what Brazil is often famous for. But there are many, many people who live within that forest. And if we can make voluntary carbon markets work, then those people have a hope of prosperity, those people will do better, we will be able to protect the forest, and we will all do better as humanity. So we're very proud from the UK side to have launched these principles. We will be engaging in public consultation. You've seen that we've got political leadership. I'm delighted we have a partnership with Nepal. So thank you very much. Go forth, talk about the principles. But you have to talk about the principles in the next room because we have another event starting very soon here. Thank you very much indeed.